Joan, can you tell me your full name
Jessie Winifred Joan Joslin.
and where were you born?
Well, Mum and Dad lived at halfway up Grange Hill. But when Mum was expecting, she went to her mother's at Dedham. So really, I'm a Coggeshall person, but the first few hours and days I was living in Dedham.
And what was the date of that wonderful day?
21st of November, 1922.
1922. Now, what was your maiden name?
Franklin.
Franklin. Now, were your parents Coggeshall people?
No, Mother came from Dedham, and my dad originally was born at Tatum, and they were farm people. Granddad was a horseman from a farm, and my dad came with him, and they worked King's farm when they met, because Mum worked across the road from the pond, where Dr. Bernardo's, as we know it, was a doctor's place, and she worked in there, and that's how Mum and Dad met. And they married, and their first little house was in Grange Hill.
Had you any brothers or sisters?
What they had, Mum had 13 children in her family,
Oh,
and Dad, I think they had about 4 boys and 3 girls in the Franklin family.
mm-hmm. And yourself, you've got brothers or sisters?
No,
No.
not now I have. I did have a brother, Doug, and I had a sister at 5. She died of meningitis when we lived at the hamlet.
Now, your grandparents, he work on the farm? Your grandparents?
My dad's parents did, yes. They always worked on farms.
Do you remember them at all?
Yes, I remember going over to a wedding. I remember I had must have been about 4, I suppose. Wasn't very old.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a wedding at my dad's sister. And that was at Felsted. That was when they were at Felsted.
Now tell me, what's your first recollections as a child? What do you first remember?
When I first, I think playing Grange Hill. Because at 5, I moved down to the hamlet with Mum and Dad.
When was that?
When I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, up till then we lived in Grange Hill, and all those old contemporary places were pulled down.
Oh.
Most of them came in these bungalows, funnily enough.
Oh.
But
Whereabouts in Grange Hill were they, those houses?
Opposite King's Warehouse.
There was on the hill itself?
There was a row higher up that way, and then there was a row nearer the path.
Mm-hmm.
Now we lived in this last one. In fact, it would be our warehouse would be in that garden of the first house down Grange Hill.
So that was where in front of where the barn is?
Yeah.
Yes. How many was there?
There was about 6 houses in the top row, and then you came down to a front part where the pump was, where everybody used the pump to get water. We had pails in the kitchen.
Did you really?
And then there was a row of houses sort of merging down into that little white house at the bottom of the hill.
Oh yes.
There was a row there. It's about 6 houses.
And whereabouts was the pump?
Right, well, that was in front of our cottages, right opposite the warehouse. That was we never had a sort of garden there. There was paths up to the front doors, and the pump was there for everybody to share.
So when you came up the hamlet, was it to the new council houses?
No, we went into the cottage where, they were still, our landlord was still Josiah Lawrence. He lived down his street, and he was the one that owned the old places in Grange Hill.
I see. Where at the hamlet were these cottages?
Those 2 that lived next, that are down there, have been made up into a nice pair now. They were wooded places then,
Yes.
slats of wood and that.
Oh.
Little cottages, and we lived in the first one, and the McLaughlins were in the second, and they just had the 2 bedrooms.
And how long were you there?
I think we came out there when I was about 11, because Doug was growing up and we wanted another bedroom each. It was only 2 bedrooms, and so we got the council house.
They were
Further
built
down.
built about 1933, were they?
I don't know,
No.
because I don't remember them.
No.
I was probably living
No.
down Grange Hill when
No.
they were built, I reckon.
Did you play with any other girls?
Well, there was the McLaughlins next door, but they were never allowed out to play, really.
Oh.
As soon as they got out, the father called them in or something, you know. But I was always playing with the boys. There was only boys to play with until I got to know a girl at the halfway house, Joan. Her name was Joan. And when we used to play together, you know, she'd come down to mine or I'd go up to hers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a nice family, they were, because she had a brother near my brother's age. And Mum used to see her mother occasionally, you know, but
Anyway,
that
did
was-
did you have much celebration at Christmas time as a family?
Oh yes, we had nice Christmases at the cottage and that. It
Yes.
was just the family really, although, you know, we used to have Hannah there, and Hannah Drury was our neighbour in
Mm.
Grange Hill.
Mm.
She never married, she was a spinster, but she was a lovely lady.
Mm.
And you know, funnily enough, she lived next door
Oh.
in that little bungalow when she
Mm.
came out of those those houses. And I knew it so well all her life, really, because she died when she was about 80, I suppose.
Mm.
But she took me everywhere in Coggeshall, all the places she was going, and of course she knew several people.
Yes.
I used to go under the clock, see Mrs. Humphrey and Mr. Humphrey, the man who shaved them in and cut the hair, because in Mrs. Humphrey's place there was a lovely big parrot there. Oh, and we used to sit there
And how old were you about this time?
I would be about, I suppose,
8 years.
8 years old, I suppose.
Do you remember did you went to school then, of course?
Oh,
Whereabouts did you go to
church
school?
I went to the church school.
In Stoneham Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
What were the teachers like there?
Well, there was this, Mrs. Winnie was, she was a harridan, she was, really, she was. You know, Mrs. Morgan, the first teacher you had, was a dear woman. She was very small and very sweet. The next class you went in was Mrs. Winnie's, and oh gosh, you came down with a thump there.
Yeah.
Oh, she used to get right red and angry, and the boys' sleeves used to go up, and she'd smack them. I used to be half afraid of the woman. I was
How many
really-
in the class?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose there was about 20, I suppose, in that class.
And of course the boys and girls would be
Mixed.
separate. Yes.
Oh, mixed
Yes.
in there, yeah. And then we had Miss Turner. She was, I think her name was Curtis, rather. Curtis, I think her name was, up Church Street, no, Queen Street, next to Mrs. Winnie, that's right. And but she was nice too. Miss Hayward, she was our teacher.
What did you play any games at
Oh,
school?
I used to love games.
What sort of games?
I was captain of the red team.
What was that?
You know, and we used to have all rounders and all sorts of things on the plate. That was usually Friday afternoon when we got those.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved to exercise. I used to like the going out, you know, when you had it in the morning, just so long exercise sometimes, and I enjoyed that.
This
I
was
really
in the
did.
this was in the school
In
playground.
the playground, yes.
Yeah.
Because the boys had their exercise, what they called the boys' playground, because that was a very old Victorian school.
Mm.
And when that was really used, those times, the boys were separated from the girls
Yes.
in everything, and they had the other part, the part they used for us for when we've got to have to see the doctors or the nurses come. We always had a room in that place, you know. I can remember once when the dentist was coming, I didn't know, but my mum said, I think I just had chicken pox. She said, the school wants to know if you've got any more spots left. She said, you've got to come and see the doctor. Said, I went, of course, all innocent. Got in this chair, presently something just slapped over my mouth. Next thing I know, I'd had a toothache. I come into the porch, I said, looked at my mum, I said, you nasty, I said, you told me they wanted to see spots. She said, I was flaming mad.
This was in the school.
She never got me to the school no more on a pretext like that.
No good. Did you come home for dinner time or lunchtime?
I did as I got older. I didn't want to stay to dinner. We had a place in the old boys' school that we could have our lunches in there. They had one of these tortoise stoves, you know, tall thing, to warm it a bit, although it was a huge old place. But that's where anybody that stayed to dinner could stay there. Because when we were first started, I mean, I was only about 5 or 6. We stayed and then came home. But later on, I used to come home dinner time as well. I've always been a walker, really. You know, that's what gets me now.
What sort of subjects did you at school?
The subjects I liked was I used to like needlework because I'm very artistic. I am. I do. I love. You know, I used to love making Dawn's clothes and things like that on my own. And
they taught you stitching there?
Miss Haywood did all the teaching for that needlework. I used to embroider the things for Mum that they had at the school, you know, and I also love reading. Oh, I love reading. I used to love reading out loud to the class.
When you got older, did you move to the other school?
No, we stayed there until we left.
Did you? How old were you when you left?
14.
14.
Yes. Although by the time my brother left, I was 15. You know. In fact, he was 15 sort of at the Easter, but they wouldn't let him leave. Although Mum wanted him to leave then because, well, actually Dad had been killed, you know, and it had been nice if he could have left then. And
so when you were 15, about 1937, did you go to the cinema or anything like that at all?
Oh yes, we'd love to go. We could go in the mornings.
This is the one.
Could, you know, down our little local cinema.
Yes.
When we were children, we could go in the mornings. Mostly cowboys and westerns. You know.
Oh, very.
But that was.
Were there any other? Are there any church fetes and things like that?
Oh yes. The big houses in Coggeshall nearly always had lovely fetes in the summer.
Which house is that?
Well, there was Starr and Leesdale. They had the Mount, and the one up West Street was Isinglass. They had a fete. So we had to dance. The girls, Miss Haywood, got us to dance. By then we were about 12. The sword dance. We did the sword dance at the fetes and that, and then there was
Was there a Coggeshall band, play, or
I think
for the
there
dance?
was one for the dancing, but not outside. There was, I think Mr. Humphrey and one or two others did, and a chaplain. They were in I think that was a sort of a 5-part, or was it like band for dancing only. You know, they didn't go out in the street.
And of course, they had carnivals, didn't they?
Oh, beautiful carnivals those days.
Did you take part?
Used to come buses from Whittam, you know, and to Coggeshall Carnival.
Did you take part in any?
No, I never went in anything. No, I didn't know. In fact, I've never liked fairgrounds. Never. I don't know why it is, but I've never been. I like the dodgems, but I didn't want to go on anything really. I wasn't. I think I went on the swinging boats and that, but nothing particularly like that was interesting me. I used to like to see my dad on the dartboard. He was a dead-eyed dick. He was on the dartboard.
When did your dad die?
Well, Dad was killed during Marconi's bombing during the war. Dad was, and so was my husband's brother. And that was an awful morning. I can't forget that morning. It'll be etched on my mind. So
he left farm work sometime.
He went to Criddles actually at Braintree.
When was that? Do you know?
When they married, because they weren't getting enough money on the land, so he went to Criddles. And he was there until he went to Marconi's some while before the war started. You know, he was a night worker, always on night work. And,
did your mum have to do any work?
Well, she did try at Criddles during the war but she used to have such bad heads that she couldn't stick it. And then later on, when they were doing the all these airdromes and things, they wanted people to take in lodgers. So Mum took in lodgers because they found out I was sleeping with Mum. There was 2 bedrooms, so Doug and the vacuee could sleep in one room, and there was another room for lodges, so we had 2 lodges, and we had the foreman of the of Denton Helliers from London. It was a firm that did the plumbing in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
things, and that's really how my brother started being a plumber. When he left school,
Yeah.
the foreman took him on.
Well, when you were, sort of a teenager, did you get up to any pranks at all? Or,
Nothing like they do get up to now. If we had a drink, sometimes we'd go up the toll and have a drink, And
yeah.
I can remember there was one occasion there was a chap from Chaya. It wasn't nothing to do with my husband, but he was such a fool, he really was. He was going round and round in the road. He said, "Oh gosh, I've lost my teeth," he said, and there was a car coming, and he was on a bicycle. That was a really funny time, that was, but we never did anything rotten, We might have looked at coming up East Street, knock on the door, because they were so handy on the door.
Going back to the pre-war years, what sort of shops were there in Cockershall? Do you remember the shops?
Beautiful shops. That was a thriving little village. It was. We had about 4 bakers, and same with butchers, really. There was Pudsey, there was Rayners, there was the co-op, there was the one that Cecil Brownings. They were all butchers and bakers. I mean, Creswell's was at the. We had Creswell's bread. They used to bring it round the house in his van.
Yes.
And
milk, of course.
And we had Pettit's milk down the lane.
What?
Our little milkman was.
What, Pointwell Lane?
Yes, because Pettit was the lady who owned it, but Mr. Tate was the one that ran it. That was her son-in-law,
Well, you say from the lane, did they keep the cows locally?
No, they never had cows. I'll tell you one who did have cows, and that was the one in Braintree Road. Now, that farmer there, Pudsey, they had cows, and they used to drive them all the way down the road to East Street and go in the little place at East Street there, little opening way there, to be milked, and come out again and drive them all about back, all on this road, Can you imagine that now? Honestly.
Well, of course, there were a few buses, I suppose. Do you remember
Hicks and Moores used to run buses, one on the hour and one really about half hour. So we were quite well off for buses, really.
Yeah.
And actually, Calverton had a bus running from Calverton to Cone all day long. That was so handy,
And any idea what the cost of a fare was?
I think that was about £1 to Braintree and 1 and 6 to return to Colchester. That's all.
Now, do you remember any characters in the town at that time? Eccentric people?
Well, I'm not just trying to think of anything, but only the. Well, I suppose there was a Ruggles Bryce. They called him Ruggles. He was a hairy man. I don't think he was married. But,
do you remember any other festivities like flower festivals and things like that? Did they have flower festivals?
They had flower shows, and they were lovely.
Yeah.
Because King's did all the sweet pea tables and were beautiful, and they were all done out with silver and everything and glass. They were just like someone was setting a table formally for somebody, and one to be in mauve, another one in pink. Sweet peas and the smells.
Of course, did they use, because St Peter's Hall, they had the exhibitions there, did they? In St Peter's Hall?
I can't remember much being held in there.
I believe they used to have plays there.
Had what?
Plays used to have.
Well, I suppose, I'll tell you what they did have, and that was lantern shows. Mr. Thingley, that owned the Friday shop, he'd been abroad a lot, and he'd got shows from Africa and things like that on the lantern shows, those sort of things.
Visiting performers.
They were quite good,
Do you remember any special weddings taking place in the town? Special celebrations?
Can't remember any.
Would you remember the Silver Jubilee?
Oh yes, we have. I think we just waited. In fact, the Silver Jubilee.
1936, that would be about thereabouts.
there was one particular time we all stood out waiting for this. That would be the old, not the last Queen, but the Queen before, the really old Queen Mary,
Yes.
going through. You know, wait from Braintree way right through.
Yes.
She went through right so quick you hardly caught a glimpse of her, you know.
I believe she called at Beckworth's to look at the furniture.
Oh, did she?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh no, she didn't that time because I went straight through there.
Oh.
It must have been another time there,
Mhm.
yeah. But there were some nice old shops that in Codwish. There was Croydon's that sold a lot of stuff for animals, you know,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
big shops like that, and
Those-
Jack Smith's shop.
yeah, saddle makers and things like that.
Oh yes, I had a lovely dog whip made, and well, it was a dog for an Alsatian. I had a lovely collar and a braided thing to hold him with, and that was beautiful, made there by Mr. Girton.
Mm-hmm.
He used to make beautiful things. He did really.
Like Endeavour.
Yes,
Yes,
beautiful. Yes, he was very good at it.
Yes. Do you remember any of the vicars at all? Did you go to the main church or the Christ
Well, I
church?
was married at the main church with Brown.
No, yes. But,
My mother had a row with him.
what was that about?
Well, it was like this. I was working at Marconi's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday. And I mean, he didn't like it because I didn't go to church. I mean, during the war, I worked 7 days one week, it would be 5 another, so it merged into one long week. And when Bert and I went to have a bands, you know, he said to
And
me,
what year was that?
well, we were married 1940. 40 or 39
During the
or
war
40,
years.
yeah, 39. Anyway, I was, in fact, he got my age down wrong. I was 19 when I put the bands in. Of course, I was 20 by the time I married because my birthday was in November. But anyway, he wasn't going to let me have the bells, you know, the organ or anything. He said, as you don't go to church now, you know, my mum went down. She said, how do you expect them to go to church? She said that as Bert was on nights, and you know, I was on days, and we didn't get the time to go to
No.
church.
No.
You know, we just didn't. I mean, I was no good. You went to work about 7:15 in the morning to catch a bus at Kelvedon. You didn't leave off at night till 9.
So where were you working during the war years?
Marconi's.
At Marconi's, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. It was a long day.
That was, and that was.
What time did you get home?
9.
9 at night.
Yes.
Mm.
That was 4 nights a week at 9. Fridays was the only time we left off at 5:30, so you could get home about 6 to 6:30. That was a long old day, and that was a terrible day when we got there and they told us that Marconi's had been bombed, you know. And I watched we watched the bodies being brought out and wondering which one was my father, you know. It's something that I shan't never remember. Forget about that. That was awful,
yes.
really was.
Yes.
Until we knew who was dead and who wasn't, you know.
Yes. You didn't belong to the WI or any other organisation? No clubs?
I never belonged to anything.
No
I
clubs.
didn't, no.
So you got married in about 1940, but where did you live? With your parents?
We
or
lived with Mum
Yes,
at the Hamlet.
yes.
We couldn't get a house because Bert wasn't in the forces, you see, and he was held back by Marconi's to set on people on the lathes and
Yes, yes.
the machines and that. Women were starting, you see, and they all wanted to be set on. And anyway,
When did you get your first house? When did you get it?
it was one of Birkin's actually. My brother's, he said there's a cottage, he said Birkin says you can have, he said it's in his street. Oh, Stephen, you should have seen it. That was that one. We had the electric put on, we had the gas meter moved out of the thingy, we had everything done in that cottage, painted it right through, you know, and that was just one decent bedroom and then a little pokey one for Dawn. But
Yes.
that was something to get in on our own, you
Yes.
know. We wanted to get on our own anyway.
So, wait, is it still there?
No, they were right opposite Annis's yard, you know, and they've still got the beam there,
Mm.
1914
Mm.
something, 1940 something,
Yeah, this is where, which
Or-
street? This
or
in
14th century rather.
which street is this in?
East Street.
East Street. Mm-hmm.
They pulled the old cottages down and they put some decent houses up there,
Mm-hmm.
right next to Mower's yard,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
there. That's
yes.
where we live.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so, oh dear, but the winter time when the toilet was right down the garden, that was really old. Froze up every winter.
Was it
you
a
know.
was it a flushing toilet?
Oh, it was a flush when it didn't flush, you know. But oh no, we
So-
used to be afraid to open the door in case a rat ran out because I was near the river when you go down there.
When was your daughter born?
1945.
45, and you'd packed up work then?
Well, I packed up before that, yes,
Yes.
but yes. Well,
Yes.
she was born in Colchester Maternity Home,
Mm-hmm.
and we still hadn't got up. In fact, Dawn was 5 before we got that cottage, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And then we'd been there about 2 years, and we put in for a council play. They were building them, you know,
Yes.
and we got that one in Jaggards Road.
Yes.
I
Oh,
was so pleased to have a bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful to have a bathroom.
now tell me, who was your doc? Do you remember your doctors?
Yes, there was a Dr. Slee that used to attend to Dad when he used to get every winter he had chest trouble. He was very chesty, and of course he used to be a zinc sprayer, and that didn't help. He said you must get a different job, that doctor used to
Yes,
say.
yes.
And then that was Dr. Slee too, who came when my sister was dying and they took her to hospital. And he came to me when I had pneumatic fever, because I remember not feeling well, and I come home from school, and I think Mum had got her sister there, and they were doing spring cleaning, and
Mm-hmm.
I said I was to cry, and I said I don't feel well. She said, "Will you go to bed then?" I said, "Don't send for the doctor." Of course she did, naturally, and the doctor came, and I think for 3 days I just didn't wake up.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a fever,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't know which way it was going to go,
No, no.
you know, and she hadn't long lost
Mm.
my sister Joyce, you
Of
know.
course, yes.
But they were very good at the hamlet.
Mm.
Mrs. Hicks, who owned the big house,
Oh yes.
used to send a big jug of dairy milk up every
Oh yes.
day.
Yes.
And Mrs. Curtis in the other big house,
Mm-hmm.
when Mum and Dad were at the hospital, they had Doug and I there all day long
Mm-hmm.
while they were, waiting for Joyce to die, I suppose.
So the doctor was very, very good.
But the doctor, and then Moffat came along.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
I remember attending. Good. My mum was no good when anybody got something wrong.
No.
She couldn't. When Doug he jumped in, sort of dived in Cat's Tails River. That's where they used to bathe up there when we were young. You know,
Mhm.
right on the corner, deep water. He dived in and he got 2 big gashes on his leg off a broken bottle in the thingy.
Mm.
And he came, when he got home, I'd have the doctor, and Mum said, I went in with the doctor because he was stitching him up, you know. It was always the same, and he got hit with a slug
Mm.
from up
Oh yes.
Curdle with
Yes.
the Desmond.
You're talking about your brother.
my brother.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he got hit with this slug right in his eye there, and I couldn't get it out. So we had to have the doctor for that. But that was Dr. Moffat,
Mm-hmm.
and he was here quite a while after that,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Because he lived in
Yeah,
Coggish.
yes, then of course Fletcher Morris came, didn't he?
And then, yes, they were very nice. They
Mm.
were.
When you were at work during the war years, you were working all day, weren't you? Yes.
Yeah. In
What
fact,
time did you start?
Well, we used to have to leave here about 6:30. At first, there was no bus. You see,
No.
we used to have to bike to Kelvedon,
Mm-hmm.
and then catch a bus from Moores. Bus.
And what time did work supposed to start?
8:15.
8:15. Mm-hmm.
And then we left about, I suppose that was about 8 when we left at night.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we got home, I was 9. All my day had gone.
So you're doing about 12 hours at the factory.
We never got chance to go anywhere else but work.
Do you remember how
Sleep.
much you were paid at that time?
Not what we ought to have had, I suppose. Really, we had a bonus system. Really, if you know, it was quite. I was on a drill,
Mm-hmm.
big drill, you know, and sometimes you had a row of them, different things, and that was for they were things for planes, I think, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and drill and tap and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I was interested. I got interested in it. I didn't mind it. It was cut your hands to bits on some of the work, though. It was really
Mm-hmm.
zippy.
And was there a canteen there?
Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Friday nights they had Ensa
Mm-hmm.
on a Friday night.
Did you ever go to the seaside at all?
Well, I wasn't a very good traveller, Steve.
No, no.
And Mum and Dad would say, we're going to so-and-so. I said, I'm not going. And Doug would say, I'm going to stop with Joan. And I used to be terribly sick.
Mm-hmm.
Did honestly. And I remember once we were having a week in
Mm-hmm.
Clacton, and I'd got to go then. Oh dear.
And how did you go to Clacton? On the train?
On a bus.
On the bus?
Yes,
Mm.
I went right through, and I was absolutely terrible when I got off the bus. Well, it was bad on the bus, but it was worse when I got out. Oh, it was dreadful. And yet, funnily enough, it didn't happen when I went home. You know, it didn't. I mean, we had a week there, and that was quite
And where
nice.
did you stay? In lodgings?
No, funnily enough, it was a caravan that one of Dad's friends said it'll be empty. He said, if you want it for the week, you can have it. So we had it, you know. And
Now, about what year are you talking about now?
that would be about, I suppose it'd be about, I don't know.
Before the war?
12, oh yes, well before the war.
Mm.
That would be about, I was about 10 or 12, I suppose.
Mm. At 1936, something like that?
So, yes, like that.
And what did you do on the beach? Did you go and...
Oh, loved the water and mess about like that. We were always in and out of the water, really.
Was there any entertainment on the beach at all?
I think it was Punch and Judy.
Punch
I
and
was
Judy.
always afraid of Punch. I don't know why. I still don't like Punch. I can't bear to see Punch on television. I don't know what there is about him, but it frightens me if Punch does.
Did you have ice cream and things like that?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Peaches.
Mm.
That was lovely. In the evening we used to have a walk, you know, and have a... Dad and Mum used to have some things in little plates, cockles on
Cockles, oh yes.
that, but I didn't want those. We used to have fish and chips a lot.
Oh,
I used to love
oh yes,
fish and
oh
chips.
yes.
It's quite nice.
Did your mum do any cooking whilst you were there, or you used to go to the
My
town?
Mum was a very good cook, because during the war she had to cook for the
Yeah.
American Red Cross up
Mhm.
at Jerome. Your mum was.
Yes,
She
yes.
cooked up there and made all the cakes and stuff for the evening as well.
Mhm.
And then when the drone finished, she came down into Coggeshall and she cooked sausage rolls and stuff in the hall for, you know,
Yes.
personnel like the
Yes.
soldiers, sailors, anybody who came into Coggeshall, they could go up there and get something to eat, and she
Mhm.
cooked there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Mrs. Fox, who lived in Coggeshall.
Oh.
She used to be one of the organisers, I think. She used to see Mum this was after the war, and that she said, oh, Mrs. Franklin, she said, your sausage rolls, she said, oh, she said, she was in raptures with them, you know, she really loved them.
Did the shortages of food affect you at all during the war years?
Well, I suppose, now,
Or did you?
I wasn't much around, I must admit. I mean, I used to wonder what I'd got for sandwiches when Mum, because I wouldn't take a big tin. I only took a little tin with something in, just so that I could put in my hard. Well, you know, you had to have a helmet, take
Yes.
to work with you. So I rested in there. But I used to think, I wonder what I've got here. You know, half the time our evacuee and my brother had been round the fields.
Mm.
And got pheasant's eggs or
Oh,
duck's
yes,
eggs,
oh.
and I used to have one of those.
Yes.
in a sandwich.
Did
or
your brother used to catch rabbits and things like that?
Well, we kept rabbits. They
You
did.
kept-
They kept rabbits out the back.
Mhm.
Because Mum was a very good cook and that sort of thing. She made a nice thing.
Do you remember the end of the war celebrations at all?
Yes, because Dawn was born April,
Mm-hmm.
so she was the youngest one in the hamlet
Yes.
when the war ended. And Mr. Vasey, Dehorn Vasey,
Mm-hmm.
he sort of knew us a bit, and he said he'd let the garage for everybody to come and make a long table and a tea. So we had all our celebrations. It wasn't a very good day, but we had it under cover. I was in his garage at the bottom there,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember looking at the door, and he said, "Oh, what a large child," he said. He was a nice man, though.
Of course, in the hamlet there used to be cottages on the green here, didn't there? Do you remember?
There was Mr. Yes, the
Against the
field
road.
that we belong to the cricket club now
Yes.
belonged to Mr. Mills, to the first cottage as you came to on the left,
Mm-hmm.
because there was no houses at all from Creswell's thingy there all the way down here at all
Mm-hmm.
until you got to the pub that side, and these houses. There was, I think there was 4 there. There was Mr. Mills, and Mrs. Chaplin, and Mrs. Drury, and another one. I think there were 4 there, because anyway, Mr. Mills owned that field there, you know, and Mum used to do strawberry picking there and over the
And of course, wasn't there a coal merchant up here?
Bibby.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was in where the teachers live now. There was sort of a double cottage actually there, because there was Mr. Bibby and his wife, and then there was the son
Mm-hmm.
there and his wife, and they sort of shared a sort of double cottage. And
Yes.
he had his coal yard, so it leaned up against the wall of the Bibby there.
Of Camlet
He
House.
kept his horse across the road in the stables and places that were there, because there was some lovely. There must have been a farmhouse down that way somewhere, because there was a beautiful. We used to play in all those places over there. There was
Yes.
a barn right on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and there was no path. That was very dangerous there.
Mm-hmm.
But we loved it over there because he kept his pigs. They had they were like stables really, but he made one into pigsty.
Now that they were the
And he
pigsties in front of the houses there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bibby used to sort of fatten up a few pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
we used to run over there and hang over the sty and look at the pigs.
Matter of interest, was there a pond there at all? A pond?
No, I can't remember a
No,
pond.
no,
I
good.
can't.
And the ground gets very wet
I
down there.
mean, it was low there, but in fact our gardens are very low and wet on the end there, and that seems to slope this way, and right at the bottom of this field now, it's right wet down there, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
But anyway, that was lovely over there, you know.
So the house that your brother lived in, did your parents live in it as well before? Were
Before, no,
that the house Richard lives in?
yes, they own, yes, they own it now. because
Yes, I
they
know,
bought
but
it, yes.
did your mother and father live there?
Yes, that's the one we had from the cottage down
Yes,
here.
yes.
Yes.
So you're all brought up there in that house?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of our life there. There was, you know,
Yeah.
my dad dying there, and Doug dying there,
Yes,
and I married there.
yes,
Got
yes,
photographs outside the house where he married there,
yes,
and Doug married there.
yes. It's all involved in your
they
life.
Had Doug's children were all born there.
Yes. Now, obviously during the war years, the town must have changed dramatically with the airfield being
Oh,
built.
Yes, the buses were full up. You could never find a seat when you wanted. The Air Force and the American Air Force, you
Yes.
know, they used to be full up with them, and they couldn't. Well, I don't know. They just didn't seem to have a lot to eat round. I suppose there wasn't places to eat unless that was the fish shop. They used to go in there, but there wasn't always fish.
No.
They had scallops. I think they used to cut potatoes like that and put batter on them and sell them.
Well,
in the fish shop,
because
you know.
shortage of food, of course.
You know, because there wasn't much else in,
Yeah.
even for people who lived in Coggeshall, you know. Of course, they had plenty of food.
Yeah.
I mean, the food that they had in the dromes up there was beautiful, you know.
Oh yeah, it's extraordinary.
I mean, what Mum cooked for them with their stuff, they were not short of anything.
No.
Plenty of fat and eggs and everything to cook with.
Yeah. I suppose your mum was able to bring stuff home.
She did bring some evaporated milk home, I remember. Tins of that. They had loads of that up there. And of course, we couldn't get stuff like that very often. And
do you I believe that during the war years there were sort of tank traps on the bridge. They put barrier up on.
I don't know, because during the war, as I say, I
You
was
were-
in Chelmsford
Yes, of course you were,
the
yes.
daytime, so I can't remember what they did on the bridge. I can't remember
No.
about that. The only time I can remember that is when that got flooded, and I used to have to go home, go down Kings used to supply a cart and horse. And then later on, when that flooded again, they had a lorry go through. But you had to get up. Really, I was surprised at how high that water came.
Yes.
I used to know a friend who lived in that little white house at the bottom.
Yes.
And she, in the summer, when I went in the summer after the floods, the water thing would still be up like that on the wall where you see where it came up.
Yes.
They hadn't decorated or anything, you know. That was ever so high.
Now, do you remember the policeman here?
Oh yes, there was one. My mum used to name Goosey, I think.
Goose, yes. Goose,
There was one, if he saw two women with a pram on a path, move over, he said, let people come by, he'd move them up. You
Yes,
know, he
yeah.
wouldn't let two prams be standing there in front of him. Good like that. Now when you think about it, with the children biking all over the path and everything, I don't know what they'd do with them now. But we had one, your dad came round after my brother, and the evacuee, you see, we had a evacuee and he was a trouble everywhere. And they wanted my mum to take him on. She said, well, he's not going to be a trouble if I have him, she said, because Mrs. Everard said, oh, please take him, Mrs. Franklin. She said, he'll behave himself if you're with him. He'd been in trouble once or twice, you know, so Mum had him.
Do you remember his name?
Yes, Morris Hat. Because actually his two little brother and sister were at Mr. Jane's. But he was the oldest one. Anyway, Doug and him, until his parents hardly ever got in touch with him, you know. It was dreadful at Christmas. You'd send him a pair of socks or something. If my mum hadn't, no, he went to, really, it was him dressed himself because he worked for the co-op baker on the van. And my brother worked on the milk van, so they saved their money. And Mum used to take them to Colchester to buy something for themselves, clothes. And that's how Mum kept the evacuee clothed that way. But anyway, you know, he was out with my brother, and of course they knew Everard, and he promised him to give him some stuff for their guinea pig if they did a job for him. So
This is at the Abbey.
Abbey.
At the Abbey, Mr.
So-
Everard at the Abbey.
So they did this job for Mr. Everard, and he didn't give it to them. So they went and took some of this stuff for their guinea pigs.
Yep.
And he told the police about it. So when they come round, Mum said, well, she said, well, why didn't he give him what he told him he'd give him? They did the job for him. But he was like that. I mean, Everard was in debt everywhere. he
Yeah, that's
was.
right, I believe.
But
How old was your brother at that
well, I
time?
suppose they were, about 12.
They were still at school,
Oh, yes.
and they were still doing the milk round.
Oh, yes.
and the bakers.
Yes, Saturdays was the milk round for Doug and the
That-
bread round for Morris.
Now, after the war, did you lose contact with this evacuee?
Well, as soon as he was 15, of course, his parents wanted him home right away. That was the first time they'd ever really got in touch. As soon as they knew he'd going to leave school, they did. But really, they forgot about him, really, when he was over here. Honestly.
Where did he
Stephen,
come from?
Um,
Was it London?
yes, was the name? Ingatstone, I think.
Ingatstone,
I think it was.
Were there many evacuees in Cockershall?
Well, yeah, there was quite a few. I mean, there was a lot in, even just the hamlet there were. Quite a few in the hamlet.
So at the end of the war you had this celebration at the hamlet on the green here?
No, not on the green. It was in the garage.
Mr. Vasey's garage?
Yes, because you see it
Yes.
wasn't a nice day.
No.
And he said, you can have the garage. And he came round and his mother, because he lived with his mother over there. And
did everybody contribute food and stuff?
everybody got something together and made a banquet. And it was quite nice.
Yes. Oh, very good.
And I can't remember anyone taking any photographs, so of course that was your sort of shortage of films.
Oh,
then,
film,
you
yes.
just
Well,
couldn't get
in fact,
the
you
films,
weren't allowed to take photographs during the war years.
So really, there's nothing to commemorate it
No,
at
it
all.
was a shame, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah. I can remember, you remember what you saw and all that, and
Going back to the early days when you were a teenager, you didn't go out to the town dancing at all? Go to Braintree
never
dancing?
went dancing.
No.
Well, actually, see, I was when the war started. I was 17.
Oh yes,
And Mum wouldn't let me go out to Colchester or Braintree dance, and there was one or two down here, and one or two little socials we went to, but. And then when the war started, I went to work and out of Colchester, I never got a chance to have anything in Colchester.
Where did you meet Bert?
Well, actually, on a picture show when he used to come from Tate of the pictures, and that was
To the old Colchester Cinema.
I was only 16 then.
Yes. Well.
That was how it. There was a load come bike. They used to bike into Colchester from Tay. Mark's Day and
Do you remember the film?
Calverton, and really, they all come to Colchester Picture Place.
Yeah. Do you remember the film?
No, I can't. I remember it was cherry time. I got some cherries. I can't remember really. And then there was another time I went out with him was when we got a carnival or something on. I think it was something in the field at the bottom of Grange Hill. They used to use that field, didn't they, for fairs. There was something on there, I remember.
And did you have a bike yourself? Have a bicycle?
Yeah, I had to have a bicycle.
Oh yes, of course.
In fact, I wanted a bike when I started work because the first year of my year of work, Mum got me a job in service, and that was for Harold Moore, the bus people. They lived at Fearing, top of Fearing there, where they got a young girl, 3 I think, and they wanted me to be there and be in the house when they weren't there, sort of help with the housework and look after her. So I had a year there.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I was interested because Mrs. Moore was, she was a parish before she married. The parishes of Colchester, before she married Harold Moore.
Was he Mr. Moore to do with the laundry?
No, not Eric Moore. No, he was the one that had the house built up here.
Yes.
No, Harold Moore was
the bus company.
Another, sort of the Moores brothers. Well, they were brothers, and then Harold was a sort of son of one of the brothers, and Eric was a son of another brother. So they were cousins, but it was quite a good place to live.
I don't suppose, of course, in those days, Marks Hall was a private estate. I suppose you never, of course, it was at the airfield during the war years.
Yeah.
But before the war, did you ever go up there?
Never went up before.
No.
No.
Because they had a lot of staff, I believe.
Oh yes, I think Mum knew someone that. Now, Mrs. Chaplin, who had about 6 children, Mum used to know that she lived in a cottage. Then eventually she had a house in West Street, big, more bedrooms, and her oldest daughter worked in one of those big houses up Marks Hall because she used to bring home a load of dripping.
A load of what?
Dripping.
Oh, dripping.
And when Mum visited she used to go and visit Mrs. Chaplin, and she said, "Jessie, would you like some dripping to take home?" "Oh, please." I used to cock my ears up because I loved bread and dripping, and the beef dripping was lovely those
Yeah, well, it
days,
was,
because
yes.
they had huge joints, didn't they?
Yes, right, and
And they had
it does
plenty
look
of it.
ready brown colour.
You know, and that used to be gorgeous.
Yes.
That was lovely dripping.
Now, do you remember the laundry?
Well, I remember it's there, yes.
Yes.
A lot of, well, in fact, a lot of Coggeshall girls worked in Coggeshall before the war, because there was the laundry, the stitching factory, and the gelatine factory, wasn't there? I mean, they all employed
Yes.
young girls.
And of course, there was, as you say, Hollington's, the
Yes.
the stitching factory. Do you remember the night when the bomb hit the church?
I was in the cinema that night.
Were you?
I heard there's something going. We all went down like this and bopped, you know, and I thought, God, that's not far off. Anyway, when we came out, you know, we heard what had happened and that. And my dad, when he left off work that morning, he came down to see what had happened, you know, because he was at Marconi's then. And honestly, it wasn't over. I mean, it's not far from the cinema, across the recreation ground,
That's
and
right.
you're there.
That's right, that's
know.
right.
That was just shushed down, you know, you could hear it coming.
Oh.